How can visual media help the spiritual development of kids in today's culture? We'll talk about it today. Hey, ministry leader, welcome to Your Visuals Matter. This is the podcast where we are helping you up your visual media game at your church or ministry. If you like our podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any episode of the show. Lots of great content for you, absolutely free, right there on our YouTube channel. Season 2 of this podcast is sponsored by our very good friends at Outreach. They have a great selection of quality banners and signs, all kinds of direct mail and invite tools for you to reach your community for Jesus. Outreach.com is their website. All right, the theme of season 2 of this podcast is how to move from ready-made visuals to crafting custom graphics and video for your church. So we're going to go age group by age group, giving insight into how custom visuals reach your kids, your students, and adults. This week, I wanted to talk more about how visuals can really help teach the Bible to your kids. We'll actually spend a few episodes here in the weeks to come looking at case studies of ministries that are really using graphics and video to reach the next generation. So today we're asking the question, how can visuals help with the spiritual development of kids? Let's jump in. Hey, ministry leader, you can reach more people on social media with short videos created from your sermons. Our friends at Outreach have just released an AI-powered site that creates bite-sized shareable clips from your sermons and then connects directly to your Facebook, Instagram, and X accounts so that you can post the clips extremely fast. You can check it out and get 2 free clips at digital.outreach.com. That's digital.outreach.com. Hey guys, my guest today is Jess Wolstenholme. Jess is the Vice President of Education and Publishing at Minno. Minno is a platform of digital content for kids. They have poured a lot of time, staff, and energy into creating a platform of high-quality kids programming. I asked why and how important the quality is to them. So let's learn from Jess how Minno is reaching kids and what things we can learn for the church. Here's my interview with Jess. Jessica and Jeremy, how are you guys?
Good, how are you?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Excellent. So, Jessica, I was saying I'm probably going to butcher your last name. Okay. So it's Wolstenholme, right?
Wolstenholme, just like it looks. Yep.
All right. I'm close. Close. And Jeremy, your last name is Seymour, right?
Yeah. It's a little bit easier.
Not as hard. Well, thank you.
Letters.
Do what?
More letters to match her name.
That's right. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out. Calling in from Nashville. I'm in Columbia, South Carolina today, so get up to Nashville quite a bit. So love the city and love where you guys are. So I'd love to kind of jump in to your roles at Minno and kind of what you do there. So Jessica, maybe get us started here. What's your role at Minno and how do you serve?
Yeah. Well, I am the Vice President of Education and Publishing. And so what that means is, well, the publishing side of it is that I head up all of our children's books and all of our off-screen content that we use. So also visual, but just kind of off the screen. So books and downloads and things like that. And then on the education side of it, I look at all of our content, both on screen and off screen. From an educational point of view, how are we teaching kids? Are we teaching them in the most effective way? At which age and stage? And then also theologically, are we doing this the right way? And we work with lots of other people smarter than me on some of the theological pieces, but I kind of corral all of it and just make sure that we are teaching in the best way.
Do you guys lean a certain way on theology? Is it more like we're going to kind of stay away from controversial stuff, or how do you guys deal with the theology conversation?
Yeah, We try to take kind of the biggest tent approach, if you will. So we know that we have members, Minno members, and kids that watch our shows and families that watch our shows, everything from Catholic to charismatic. So we try to, we stick to kind of a traditional orthodoxy and really look to Scripture. That's the end game is to be in line with Scripture. And so we look at that, but want to keep in mind that we have people that have different traditions and different backgrounds. And so we try to be sensitive to that as we go.
Good. Jeremy, what about you, man? How do you serve the team?
Yeah, so I am the Chief Creative Officer, and really what that means is I get to shepherd the look and feel of Minno through all of our design elements and into some of our Minno original series that we create. So anything from ads to shows, just kind of making sure that what we're doing is raising the bar the way that we want to and representing that really Christians have a space in this, that we can achieve this excellence that we really desire to demonstrate.
Good. How much of the platform, from your point of view, is original content? How much of that is licensed content that you guys have on there?
I'm trying to remember. Do you know what our percentage is?
I don't know if we know a specific percentage, but the majority of what's on the platform right now is licensed content. We only started creating Minno originals about 3 years ago. Is it 3 years ago?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, technically, like we started with much smaller originals. In 2020.
In 2020. So about 4 years we've been working on Minno originals. The biggest tent poles of those being the Laugh and Grow Bible for Kids and the Young David series. And then so much else is licensed. That's kind of why we're doing what we're doing is to add more to that mix, because there isn't a lot of newer content in the Christian kids space, and we're really passionate about giving them a greater offering.
So, Jeremy, your oversight from a creative point of view, is that kind of making sure that the licensed content meets a standard, or are you over the original content, or both?
Honestly, the licensed content we do kind of as a group. We look at in a variety of ways, and does it when we look at something licensed, we go, does this raise the bar theologically? Does this raise the bar stylistically? And is it in line with where our families are? Like, is this really where we want to be? And then when we're doing original content, we get to speak much more into that and really help, shepherd as much as possible and guide the look and feel. But there's not one specific look. There's more of a feeling, I guess, of what it should be.
Yeah, I think we curate what we license. We go through a rigorous review process just to make sure it hits all the excellence and theology and educational value and entertainment value. And then, of course, when we do the originals, which Jeremy really spearheads, we get to have so much more of our handprint on it.
Yeah, good. So Jessica, maybe let's take a step back for a second and let people know maybe how the platform Minno came to be and what's on it specifically. It's all kids programming, correct?
Yeah. So, we like to say, for lack of a better term, I guess, we're the Netflix of Christian kids. And actually we like to go more towards like PBS if we were comparing, just because of the educational value and all of the thought we put into the content. But it's just an easy way for people to understand that we are a streaming video platform. You use it like you would use a Netflix or a Disney Plus. But what is on there is only content for kids that is either faith-based, or we call it Christian consistent. So it's consistent with Christian values. We do have a couple of shows on there that are not overtly Christian, but they follow, all of the values that we would want to put in front of our kids. And so that's, how we describe it. How we came about is our CEO, Eric Goss, is a dad to 3 girls, and just really saw the need for something. There was a hole for something for them to experience media, and so he started the platform. And we were originally by a different name and transitioned to Minno in 2019. Right, 2019. Yeah, it's been about 5 years, and have seen tremendous growth and lots of families discovering us and realizing, wow, there's something out there for my kids. We feel like kids need to see their faith represented visually and on screen, and this is what we allow them to do, that to see faith being lived out in fun, exciting shows for kids that meets them where they are.
So I've interviewed Eric once or twice before, and his background is very interesting. For folks who don't know, he was involved with Amazon, right? Ebooks and things like that in the Amazon world, and then came over and started that. So very neat. All right. So the name of this podcast is called Your Visuals Matter. So I really want to kind of dive in from you guys' point of view, from Minno, both the licensed content that you guys kind of run through your checkpoint process to make sure it hits the right standards, and then your original content as well. So maybe, Jeremy, let's kind of dive into how you guys see visual media as a tool for really spiritual development. Values, yes, also that's great, but also the spiritual development of kids. Yeah,
and I think visually kids connect with things that feel familiar, but also feel like they're made for them. As far as spiritual development, Jess and I work on how we can best tell that story quickly and easily, because that's kind of where everything is right now, that everything has gotten faster. What used to be a 30-second commercial is now a 15 or a 5. And that has bled into how kids encounter media. And so we're finding ways of making sure that whenever we're introducing or bringing stories about, that we're really trying to capture those minutes or seconds instead of just letting them just be a branded moment or just a little snippet. We want to try and engage and relate.
Yeah, we have there's an educational saying, show, don't tell. That happens, that comes about a lot in the educational world and in media. I think show creators say that a lot. It's one of the best ways to tell a story is to show and don't tell. And so for us, that's something we're always reminding ourselves, and we say it out loud. And as we're reviewing a script or reviewing a storyboard or an animation pass, we'll say show, don't tell. So we can pull back on that dialogue or on the narration and really boost the visuals, because research shows that human beings, kids, grown-ups, visuals help them process things, and it helps them to cognitively connect to ideas. And so when you're talking to kids about really, really abstract, really, really hard concepts like we do when we're teaching the Bible, visuals help them. And, they may not remember what the Holy Spirit is or what that means. They may not remember what sin or redemption, means. But if they can see it somehow, we can help them to, store that in their brain so that later on when they return to those concepts, they have a better chance of understanding.
Good. Jeremy, you hit on something that I want to kind of revert back to, and that is things are getting shorter and shorter. And I think that does apply to our attention spans and kids' attention spans also. But I would say episodes as well, where it used to be a 24-minute episode or 28-minute episode. Now it's a 7-minute Bluey episode. Right. It's short. Do you see that being an ongoing trend? And I mean, things like Instagram has to be under 60 seconds, things like that, very, very short. Does that have to do with our attention spans? Does that have to do with, I'm going to remember that short thing faster? What do you think that comes from?
Yeah, I mean, for grown-ups, I think it may be our attention spans. It may be the fact that we've shortened everything down and we're trying to get everything as concise. And what used to be a 5-minute YouTube video is now a 60-second Instagram post. For kids, in a lot of ways, it's minute per age. So in a lot of ways, the 5-year-old, a 5-minute episode is a really great way for them to track with the episode, because it's right about as long as they can last. After that, they'll start to fade out. And even still, even in the middle of some of those, depending on if you've ever watched a toddler watch TV with a remote, they'll get halfway through an episode and then they change out to something else because they get a little bit lost. And it's been amazing to watch TV and new series start to really refine this. We've seen it for a long time, but it was 30 minutes, like you said, or 22 minutes. And then it was 11s, and now 7s and 5s. And so it's, I think it's actually a little bit more of refining and understanding who kids are better, and giving them a little bit more of what they're really looking for instead of what we think they need.
Yeah, and circling around that thought, I think of like a television show series, or a season rather, where it was 24 episodes, for instance. Now it's 8. Eight episodes is a season. 8 or 10 episodes is a season. Or even things like back in the day, every single show we knew the theme song of growing up. Now it's like, name the theme song of this show. There is none, because they get to the episode content so quick. Maybe kids, I think, is probably a little bit different. I mean, I use Bluey as an example. We know the Bluey theme song, but do you sense that in adult world as well? Like, just we're finding ways to trim and cut and get to things faster.
Instant gratification. That's social media and technology. That's what it has, bred in us, that we want instant gratification. We want it to be fast, and we want to get to it. And so I think kids, even more so with shorts, and they love, TikTok and YouTube shorts and everything that's just happening. They're so used to seeing things just breeze past them. And then, if it catches their eye, great. If not, and that's why visuals are so important, because we have to catch their eye very quickly. Jeremy's always reminding us of that. We have to catch their eye quickly.
But it is interesting that you bring up theme songs, because, and Bluey is a great example because it stretches so many different age groups. But the younger kids will sit through the opening sequence, and the older kids will skip the sequence, because the younger age, it's not even so much that they don't know how to do it, because they can navigate a lot of this, but that familiarity, that thing that they know and love, that's kind of what we used to love about theme songs. And that's where, so the kids that we mostly serve are that younger group that hasn't necessarily found their way to YouTube Shorts or TikTok. They're not breezing past as much, because they want to savor their moments, and the thing that they already know. They know the theme song. I don't know what the rest of this episode is, but I know that my kids are a little bit older, so the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse hot dog dance, like they knew that, and they knew the intro song.
Yeah.
I miss a good theme song. We know our theme songs, but from back in the day, but we don't know them anymore. I miss it because there is a familiarity, if I could say that word, with it, that I do think kids connect to. It's like, okay, I know what this is. I treasure this. Like it's a memory for them. It's a memory for us with theme songs from back in the day. All right. So Jeremy, let's kind of dig into maybe some of the stories that you guys have heard from ministry leaders or parents about maybe the impact the platform is making, maybe some of the shows that are really impactful. What are you guys seeing and hearing from on the ground? Yeah,
to be honest, to be a part of our Minno Laugh and Grow Bible, which Jess has been with through the whole time, but I have just recently come on as we're bringing it to life through animation. In a lot of ways, that's where we hear so many different stories. That's the part that I'm so just wowed by every week, that parents are reaching out and saying, my kids now know more about the Easter story than I do, and I'm learning from them. Or my kid every night wants to watch the David and Goliath episode every night, just like that's just what they do. And they're 2 years old. They're little. They're not even necessarily taking all of the story in, but they're but yeah, so it's been really incredible. Like, don't you think, to how we're, really mostly through social, but also people reaching out to us directly and just sharing what an impact those stories have been on their family.
Yeah, they'll say, we get emails from parents every week, and lots of social media posts where they're showing their kids engaging with the show. All he wants to watch is Jesus stories or Bible stories. My kid can say the fruit of the Spirit, and I didn't even know where he learned it. Things like that are just so gratifying, so amazing for us to hear as we work through animating the Bible. So we've animated 24 of about 63 stories so far. And so it's an ongoing project, and it's just so helpful to hear that it's working, so that we know, what we're doing is effective, because that's what we want. We want it to be effective.
So give folks a sense, maybe Jeremy, you can talk to this. I want people to get a sense of how long it takes to do some of these things, and that it's sometimes more expensive and a longer process, and takes a team and resources. So maybe from a timeline perspective, from one story from start to finish, about how long does it take?
Yeah, one story. So ignoring the fact that these already exist in a physical Bible. So we had a really great starting place, that the story existed, but now what was a 2-page, 3-page story in a physical printed book, we're now scripting and having dialogue. So the script and dialogue, let's say the Desert Temptation was started, I think, in November, and delivered last week. So
about 6 months.
And that's pretty fast for a 5 to 6 minute episode. Yeah. And that sounds like a long time, but it really, yes, we're using a lot of modern technology, a lot of modern tools, new animation tools, but in a lot of ways it's still a lot of hand-drawn. It goes all the way back to traditional hand-drawn styles, because what was what used to have to be a drawing for a wave, you can get away with one drawing and do this. But then if you need the arms crossed, that's still another 10, 20 drawings. And those drawings then have to be colored and have to be processed and then sent. And so it's just it takes a long time. And arguably there's only a few, in the past, there's been a lot of shortcuts taken, because of budget constraints or because of whatever talents there were through in the Christian space. And I'm so proud that we're bringing so much more of this bar raising quality to the work that we're getting to do. And it couldn't be more important than stories about the Bible.
And then, on the other hand, a project like the Young David shorts, that's 5-minute episodes. That's been 2 years in the making.
Yeah.
2 years in the making for 25 minutes of content. And so, like Jeremy said, there's so many new ways to do things. And there's different levels to do things depending on the budget and depending on the timeline. And so it can be anywhere from 6 months to years.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we mentioned a little bit your kind of rigorous process of accepting programming into the platform, and then your own programming, having this long period of time where you're making it from scratch. So, Jessica, maybe you could speak to this. What is that process? Can you take me into that a little bit of what you're looking for, and why are you making the visual quality be so important? Why is that such a big deal to you guys?
Yeah. Well, so for the the shows that we license, we have a rigorous checkpoint list that we go through every time somebody pitches a show to us, like that's already created, or we go out and look for shows to license. We might say, oh, we need a show about this, or, or that, to fill a need, because we really want to have a rounded out, curated experience. And so we bring that in, and we have a team of us here that review it. And of that, long checklist, it's everything from, obviously theology is number one. We want to make sure, that it's teaching the truth and it's biblically based. We want
a healthy God view.
And a healthy God view. That's one, to be honest, that we've rejected some shows because we didn't feel like it formed a healthy introduction to God. So there's a lot of old school, ways that we talk about God, or, little things like, hey, he's the big boss upstairs. We don't want that to be a child's first introduction to God, because that we believe doesn't paint the best God view. And we say around here, we have the privilege of, in a lot of ways, introducing kids to that first view of God. And so we want to be very, very careful. So theologically, and then educationally, like, what's it teaching? How is it teaching? Has it been thoughtful in that approach? And then visually, is it excellent? Does it raise the bar? There are times where things are a little older. It's not necessarily raising the bar, but for what it was well done. And so we have those things on our platform. And then lastly, it's more experiential and engagement. Our kids going to think this is fun. And for our shows that we do in-house, we often bring them to a process called formative research. And so we've worked with a lot of educational media experts that have helped us formulate a process of taking a show before children and actually asking them, to engage with it, and then engaging and seeing, did they like it? Were they interested in it? Did they lose interest quickly? And then what happens after those research projects is we go back and we retool the show. So we'll calibrate and we'll say, oh, they all lost interest after 3 minutes. Okay, what can we do to keep their interest? Like, what needs to happen? What are we missing? What needs to happen here? And so, again,
is there a focus group, like kids watching it?
It's like a focus group.
With a meter, and how does it work?
Yeah, it is. We started doing this during COVID, so we had to be a little creative, and we did most of it via Zoom. But we would get a child and a parent on Zoom, and we will have instructed them to watch the show a couple times, and then they answer questions we ask the child, about. We'll ask them specific questions to gauge whether or not they retained anything, if they, or they might be like, I don't know, because they weren't interested. And, it's not easy to do research with a 3 to 5 year old, but but man, there's a lot that they will tell us. And so it's been an interesting process.
You were saying that Jeremy's attention span's about the same, so you usually use him for
pretty
research.
much. So we use him.
I honestly have no idea what you were just saying. I was forgot I was here.
Hilarious. All right, how do you guys? How do you balance? Thanks for letting me pick on you. How do you balance the entertainment value, with the message front and center? So obviously, the message is the most important. It can be an amazing visuals, but if the message is not there, it's probably going to it's missing the mark, because that's not what you guys are doing. Yeah. So how do you balance the two, that it needs to have the message there, but also be entertaining?
Yeah. The thing about it is there is no true recipe for how to do it. We start with fun and funny because it's the language of kids. So that's where they're going to relate. But we know that our job is to get them to walk away with something. We don't necessarily expect them to, pause the show and go like, Mom, Dad, I want to give my life to Jesus. I mean, that'd be amazing, but that's not really what we're trying to plant seeds along the way, so that when they hear the story, they go, I remember that. That was in this episode. I want to know more. So what we're trying to do is just plant seeds along the way. And while we're doing that, how can we be quirky and funny without being irreverent. Certain places we're able to be a little bit funnier, where like in certain episodes of the Bible, we can get away with something that's completely different because you're like, well, obviously that didn't happen, like a person floating away on a ducky floaty. But then other things you can't do it, and it's better to just give it the reverence that it needs. And we'll find ways of bringing some lightness. And then other shows that have a much smaller lift on their biblical, curriculum. They're more just, how can we have fun and just let kids know that God loves them and God cares about them and has trusted them and given them gifts. We can just show that and then have a whole bunch of fun in between just by reiterating that over and over and over again. Like, oh, wow. Like, God knows me. God loves me.
Good.
Yeah, there's, it depends. It's definitely an art, and it depends on the episode. We try to really look at them one at a time. So, for instance, when we're doing the Jesus death episode, there's a lot less room for funny in that one. We might try to
surprisingly.
Yeah, I know. We might try to make it lighthearted where possible and where appropriate. But then there are other episodes where we can add like just little funny things here and there to kind of surprise a kid. Like they're learning the Bible and they're not expecting that little joke. Right. And so there are times where we have to first make sure that the meaning is there. And then we always come back around. And that's why I appreciate Jeremy so much, because we say he's the Lorax for kids. Like, he speaks for the kids. He speaks for the kids. I say that all the time because he is like a giant. He's an 8-year-old boy in a giant man's body. And so
could be 9.
Could be 9. I just always say 8. So I know that he's going to make sure it's fun, and that's why we have such a good team that balances that out, because we are finding that art together of, how can we make this fun, but still be reverent and still be true to the word and the story? And so, yeah, it's definitely an art.
Well, and also learning from a lot of what's come before us. There's some ways that it's been done so well, and then other ways that what it's done is we've done funny and hilarious, and then saved the serious Jesus moment for the last 2 minutes or 30 seconds. And we don't want to do that. We want to try and weave it in throughout, and but not lose the funny. And it's been a great, we have a really good team to bounce these kind of things around.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Last question for you. We've circled around this, but why do visuals matter when it comes to communicating the gospel to kids?
It's so hard to articulate exactly why visuals are so important. It's kind of like when you walk into a space and the visuals are just right. It's like oxygen. You don't really know why, but it just feels like a bright sunny day. When things are a little bit off, just even for grown-ups, there's just one or two things that just make you feel uncomfortable. And for kids, it's really leaning into what is a kid's, like, not necessarily what is everybody everywhere else in the world exists for grown-ups. Where is a kid's space, and how do we make things visually for kids that when they look at it, as much as I'm going to look at it and go, oh, this is so fun and it's squishy and I can stretch this elephant in a bunch of fun ways, but they're going to look at it and go, oh my gosh, I love this. And I'm like, yeah, see, I told you. And they're like, no, because he's pink. I'm like, all right, you love him because he's pink. Like, I'm gold. That's great.
Right.
And they pull that and they make that theirs, because it doesn't have to be everything else that, what I assume in most houses, like every other room is the parents', but we get to create for their room.
For their space. Yeah. I think, if you want kids to care, you have to meet them where they are. And one thing I've always said, and I say this to parents, is as I'm encouraging them to include faith-building conversations as they play with their kids, it's because, when you show kids you care about what they care about, they're going to care about what you care about. And so when we meet them where they are and say, this is your space, this is your world, you can learn the Bible, but it doesn't have to be dry and boring. It can be colorful and bright and fun and funny when appropriate again. When we do that, they're like, oh, this is for me. And they take a greater interest in it. There's tons of research around it. That's might bore you, but that's really the crux of it. That's why we do what we do.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you guys so much. If people want to get involved, find out more about the platform, tell us where to go and how to sign up.
Yeah, they can go to gominno.com. It's GOMINNO.com and look at our shows and what we have there. There's a blog there that has some of the off-screen stuff, and our books are in the shop. So you can, if you go to gominno.com, you'll be able to see everything that's there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate the time. Love what you guys are doing, and keep up the great work for the kingdom.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
What's up, guys? I'm Stallion, and I'm our training content manager. That's right, I help oversee all of our podcasts, courses, articles, and webinars that we offer on our Church Visuals site totally for free for you ministry leaders. Check out our website at churchvisuals.com/training.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this week. Subscribe to our Church Visuals YouTube channel for more free content. As we close this week, here's your Church Visuals tip of the week. Kids of all ages know high quality when they see it. They may not be able to put their finger on it or tell you how, but they know. Kids know, students know, adults know. Quality matters. If you want to reach the people you want to reach for Jesus, your visuals matter. I'll see you next week. Your Visuals Matter has been a podcast presentation of Church Visuals. Executive produced by Carl Barnhill, edited by AJ Schubert, title and show graphics by Angie Lomas. For more resources to help you visually communicate the gospel, visit churchvisuals.com.